Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective. The sad passing of Marcus Lamb, founder of Daystar Christian Network, raises another sad question. Did he die before his time? And before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. Marcus Lamb passed away yesterday from COVID, and I'm asking the question: did he die before his time? And while I know this may be poor timing because of he just passed away, and I am going to be respectful of the family and his supporters in their time of grief, but I also think it is equally important that we explore this question because like so many uh, vaccine COVID deniers, anti-vaccine people, Marcus Lamb died of COVID, and he was one of those who spoke out against the vaccine, taking the vaccine. So I want to talk about that. Before I do, I want to share a scripture. I want to share a scripture that I think is apropos here, and this is in Ecclesiastes chapter 7. And it says, "Don't be excessively wicked and don't be foolish. Why should you die before your time?" Let me read this again. "Don't be excessively wicked and don't be foolish. Why should you die before your time?" And I want to focus on that last phrase of the first sentence. Don't be foolish. Why should you die before your time? And I believe that we can ask this question concerning Marcus Lamb. He founded the Daystar Network, and it is the second largest Christian network, second to TBN. They have a lot of, I think, questionable theologies. I'm not going to get into that. But the reason why that's important to understand is that there are some theological issues that that are at the issue here that shape the way we think. Now, when it comes to the COVID-19 and how people are processing it, the thought, and I want to say that in the case of Marcus Lamb, a man who had a major television network, I'm going to say he is a thinker. He has some means. I'm quite surprised at how so many people their views on COVID. And my point is, his views were the wrong views because ultimately he passed away from COVID. And COVID is something you can avoid. See, that's the different thing, right? There are certain diseases that you can avoid. AIDS is something you can avoid. Herpes is something you can avoid. Okay? And I'm saying this, don't do certain things. Don't have us, and mainly the mindset here. And I'm always amazed when people say, especially Christian leaders who have come out against COVID. John MacArthur, for example, comes to mind, who fervently fought against COVID. Of course, it come to find out that he was lying about him contracting COVID and his battle with COVID, which was a hard one. But did he come out and correct that and say, hey, you know what, I was wrong about that? No. And of course, there are those other leaders who have passed away from COVID. And while certainly you can make the argument, yes, COVID is survivable for most people. But why contract the virus in the first place? At best, you can be asymptomatic, then you can have mild symptoms, But anyone who have mild symptoms to severe symptoms will always tell you you don't want to get it. So why get it? And what I don't understand is what is the great opposition to that? And I want to go into this further. I want to dissect the announcement of his death by his wife and son, because there are things that are, to me, important here. Because I'm exploring, did he die before his time? COVID was something he didn't have to die from. So let's get into the video, and I'm going to comment as we go.
Hello everybody, I'm so glad that you tuned in today, and I'm glad to be sitting here, and of course co-hosting with me, or at least at the top of the show, is my son Jonathan Mark Lamb. How are you?
I'm okay. Today has been a very tough day for our family.
Today has been a tough day. I told everyone I can't talk to anyone or go there until I talk to you, because our Daystar family is so important to us.
Yeah.
So many of you have been praying, and I want to say thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to cry, but of course, you know, I am going to. But this morning at 4 a.m., the president and founder of Daystar and the love of my life went to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
It hasn't been easy, Jonathan. I'll tell you that he fought the good fight, and he worked really hard. He really to stay here.
He did everything.
Now, did he really fight hard to stay here? I'll come back to that statement later. But what they mean is, because of their theology, the word of faith theology, that he had faith and he was speaking, he was believing that he was going to be healed. And they have to kind of answer the questions, why, did he die, since they had, when he contracted COVID, and then when it became worse, because COVID is something that happens rapidly, right? Some cancers take years, but COVID is something that, it within 2 or 3 days, and then of course within just 2 or 3 weeks, it could take you out. And that's what happened here. So when they said that he was fighting to stay, meaning that was he believing God? Was he using his faith? But I'm going to also say this. There was a better way to fight this by not getting COVID in the first place. But let's continue.
He could, like, the fight. I mean, he was... Marcus Duran Lamb is a fighter. He does not give up easily. And he did everything he possibly could to fight, to battle.
And again, I'm going to take issue with that. He did not do everything he could, because he could have got vaccinated. He could have wore better PPE. This is the message that I'm trying to say to everyone. And yes, I'm infringing here on the moment of grief here that the family and supporters are experiencing. I get that. But I said, you know what? This is important as well, that we need to know. No, he could have done better. And just like oftentimes, look, we're all going to die, without a doubt. And what we all have in common is that we don't know the date of our death. We don't even necessarily know how we're going to die. But we know if those 3 things, we're going to die, we don't know the day of our death, and not necessarily how. But there are things that we can do. See, there are people who ignore, not even talking about COVID, right? But there are people who ignore things that are going on in their body until it's too late. Whether it's cancer, whether it's other diseases. COVID is preventable. And we see these stories too frequently. And yes, it may be survivable, but why go through it? Why cause the grief? Why cause the pain, yours included? No, he didn't do everything that he could to stay here because he could have avoided COVID. Let's continue.
This morning, basically, he was diagnosed with COVID and then got the COVID pneumonia, but he had pre-existing conditions. He never talked about that, but he had diabetes, but he kept it in check. He was very healthy. He ate healthy, kept his weight down, and always kept his sugar at a good level. But with trying to treat COVID and the pneumonia, the different protocols that are used, including many of the protocols we talked about here on Daystar, and we used those, and I used them and breathed through COVID. It caused his blood sugar to spike and just a decrease in his oxygen, and that's why he went to the hospital, so he could have oxygen. He 100% believed in everything that we've talked about here on Daystar and helping so many people around the world with.
All right, so here's the thing here. He went to the hospital to get treated for COVID. Think about that. When he got COVID, he went to the hospital to get treated for COVID when he could avoid contracting COVID. This is my point. This is why the scriptures tells us, let's not be foolish. Why should you die before your time? And if you're taking medicine, and he is now, think about this. He goes to the hospital, they got him on oxygen, they got him full of medicine. They're treating pneumonia. So why would you take that medicine and not the vaccine that could help you prevent you from getting the COVID in the first place? If anything 100% sure? Absolutely not. But it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. And then you go to the hospital and you get pumped up for the medicine to try to keep you alive. That's foolishness. Let's continue.
Protocol treatments for COVID, we still stand by that, obviously. But at the end of the day, this morning I was in the room and I've been there with him the whole time.
Yeah, he's been amazing.
But anyway, his heart, it wasn't even the breathing. He was breathing, but his heart just gave out.
Right.
And so they tried to resuscitate him and he did not. I was for sure that he would. I definitely will have a talk with him in heaven one day about why he did not stay. Because, I certainly want him to stay. But I will say this. He and I had some tough.
All right, she's going to go on and talk about kind of their plans, and this is more to stabilize the ministry, okay? And I won't get into that, but that's where the rest of the conversation is going to go in terms of, okay, he told me, hey, keep the ministry going. But again, why die before your time? See? And all of that, when she says that, and by the way, Word of Faith people do this all the time, that I'm thinking about Fred Price, who earlier this year passed away. He was, of course, almost 90 when he passed away, but he passed away of COVID. And what happens is that you see the family and the ministry kind of had the same kind of talk that, hey, the pastor was fighting a good fight and he was winning, but then he looked over the glory and he saw Jesus and decided to go. No, he didn't. He didn't want to go, and he didn't want to go that way. And that's the same thing here. Why should you die for your time? He says, don't act foolish. Don't act foolish. And even if you say, I don't want to take the vaccine, but you're taking other medicines. And that is the interesting thing right here. People take every other kind of medicine, but you don't want to take the vaccine. You don't want to do, so if you don't want to take vaccine, why wouldn't you want to wear the proper PPE? Be very careful that you don't contract it. Okay, guys, look. COVID is something you can avoid, you can prevent. So why die before your time? Why go through that? All right, guys, look, that is my perspective. Love to hear your opinions and your thoughts. Add to the comments section. All comments are welcome, and don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. Till next time, I'll see you then.